On with you today because we're going to talk today about bloating. And this is something that a lot of women will deal with going through perimenopause. So, from as early as about the age of 30, right up until you go into menopause, and it can continue in menopause as well. And so, I want to talk to you a little bit about why this happens, what's actually going on in your body. Because, as I mentioned from time to time, I want you to start understanding your body a little bit more because ultimately, we're not taught these things as women. There's not a lot of education from a medical perspective. And that's the person that you'll often go to if you need support or you're looking for help with something. And my experience in the past was I'd go to my doctor, and something I heard multiple times, and I've heard from clients as well, is well, it's just a normal part of aging. You're at the age where that's just going to happen. And this is where it's really helpful to have a bit of an understanding of what's going on in your body, because then you're able to have a conversation and say, like, okay, but this is not okay because what I'm experiencing, I didn't deal with that before. So why am I dealing with it now? And what can I do about it? And that's how I like to help clients as well, is to take a look at what's going on and figure out, why is their body not functioning the way it should be? Because ultimately, suppressing symptoms, which is what medications typically will do, isn't dealing with the problem and why you're having the issue in the first place. So you're not going to get better. Okay, so bloating, my little ramble there, but it's important to know. And bloating is something that a lot of women will deal with as they go into the perimenopause phase of life. And sometimes you can wake up in the morning and your pants feel fine, your clothes fit great, you leave for work, everything feels good, or you leave to go out onto your day or throughout your day, and everything feels fine. And then I've talked to many women who have said, by after lunchtime or in the evening or when they come home at the end of the day, their pants are like feel way too tight all of a sudden, or they're having to loosen their belt. And it's like this massive change in their abdomen from in the morning until later in the day. I've had clients say to me, like, people asked me if I was pregnant, which is not a comfortable situation to be in, but there's a reason behind it. Why are you getting this distended abdomen? Why are you getting these symptoms essentially? And ultimately, anytime there's a symptom, there's always a cause for it. And it's one thing to say, like, I don't care what the cause is, just tell me how to fix it. But I think it's important to have a little bit of an understanding, because otherwise you're going to be in the same place over and over again. So, anyways, so bloating, so the abdomen distends, and this can be to the point where you feel like you need to loosen your belt. You feel like suddenly your pants don't fit properly, or people can mistake you for being pregnant, which I'm going to be 41 this year. Um, I'm definitely not pregnant for multiple reasons, but it's not a comfortable situation to have someone ask you if you're pregnant, especially when you're feeling uncomfortable already because there's bloating. And perimenopause is a time where there's a transition happening for women. Things are starting to shift. That is natural for things to start to change as we go through this phase of life. But what's not natural is the symptoms that a lot of women deal with. The problem, or a part of the problem, is that as a society, they're common. A lot of these symptoms are common. So a lot of women complain about the bloating or the hot flashes or the changes in their cycle or the moodiness, or the weight gain. I may have said that already. But these are things that are common. A lot of women deal with them, but they're not normal. But they've become normalized because we see them everywhere. But that doesn't mean that you have to deal with them. This is something that I can help you with. This is something I help women with every day. And it's the understanding of, like, I don't have to just accept that things are the way they are. Things can be better. I just need to find someone who's going to help me figure out what needs to be done and what I need to do to get there. So perimenopause is a phase where there's transition happening in your body. Ultimately, your organs, so your ovaries, are your little estrogen producers all through your fertility years. And as you go into menopause, which could be in 10 years, could be in 15 years, they're going to go into retirement and your ovaries are going to take over. So it's a pretty big transition that's happening in the body. If you think of like a relay race where they're ready to pass the baton, that's basically what's happening here. And so hormones are going to fluctuate. When we're in our earlier phases of life, the hormone fluctuation is pretty stable. And then we get to perimenopause, and there's like this roller coaster of hormones that can be happening when the body's not supported properly, especially when you're under a lot of stress, where there's big changes in your diet. This can have a really big impact. But the really wild changes in hormones is what can lead to a lot of the symptoms that women deal with. So, bloating can be caused by a number of factors, and it can be more of a problem during perimenopause than other times of life as well, although it can carry into menopause. And the women that often have a more difficult time with bloating are women that have had problems with bloating leading up to their period throughout their 20s and throughout younger parts of their life as well. Understanding the cause can help to make this period a bit easier because then you can understand some things that you can do about it and to help your body. One of the most common causes during this phase is going to be the hormone fluctuations. As I mentioned, you're passing the baton, the ovaries are passing the baton to the adrenals soon as you go into menopause. And this is where the hormones can fluctuate quite a bit. And the biggest one that we see an impact here is that there's going to be a decrease in estrogen for a lot of women. And when estrogen drops suddenly, that's when we can have the hot flashes, the night sweats, and a lot of these symptoms as well. But the decrease in estrogen can also lead to an increase in water retention in the body. And the water retention can be part of what contributes to the bloating. There's also the factor of when estrogen levels drop, your body makes less bile. And bile is really important for the digestion of food. And so if your body's not producing the things that it needs to produce to digest your food properly, the food can sit in the system longer than it should and not break down properly, which leads to gas building up in your system. Hence the I wish I had a balloon, hence the expanding belly that can happen in the afternoon. If the food is not being broken down properly and it's been building up and building up and building up and building up all day long, this gas in your system, that can lead to the bloating and to the feeling of, I need to undo my belt. I need to loosen my pants. It can lead to some gassiness as well. It can lead to some digested, like some nausea as well. This is when women can have more of a hard time with things like heartburn too, just because the body is not breaking down foods the way that it should be. So, since the bile also acts as a lubricant, for the intestines. That's one of the functions and purposes, one of the reasons we need a gallbladder, because we need to produce enough bile for our body to break down food properly, but it's also important as a lubricant. So if you're going through the estrogen fluctuations and estrogen is dropping drastically or too much, too quickly, and the bile is decreased, this can lead to constipation, which also isn't comfortable. So now you've got this big balloon of a belly that's bloated and full, and you're also not pooping. That's not going to be comfortable and fun for anyone. And then we lead to more hormone imbalance because if you're not pooping, you're not able to clear out estrogen properly. And so that's when estrogen dominance can become a problem as well. So these factors are all interconnected. Everything in your body is interconnected. So if you're having issues with bloating, it impacts so many other areas of the body as well. And so it's really important to take a look at and see what is causing this? What's the reason? And then we can start supporting the body to help get you back into balance, get your hormones back into balance, get digestion functioning properly again so that you don't have to live with the bloating and you don't have to live with the symptoms that come up throughout this phase of life. You don't have to live with the doctors that say to you, well, it's just a normal phase of aging. It's a normal part of the age that you're at now. That's BS, in my opinion. Sorry. But there's so much more you can do for yourself. And there's so much more from a natural perspective that you can do as well to help and support your body, which is going to make this phase a whole lot easier for you. So, other common things, these are a little bit more lifestyle factors that can contribute to bloating as well. So, dietary factors are going to be something that's going to play a part here. Um, this can include things like eating more processed foods. Processed foods are going to cause more gas in the system as well. They can be an irritant to the stomach, they can feed the bad bacteria. There's lots of reasons why eating a lot of processed foods is not going to be beneficial for you in general, in terms of optimal health, but definitely not if bloating is a problem. And I get it that a lot of the times, if you feel like you've got this big bloated belly and it can make you like agitated and irritated, and we can tend to want to eat like the fast acting carbs, and it's all just this vicious cycle. So we want to focus on eating real whole foods as much as possible if this is something you're dealing with. It can be beneficial to eat smaller meals rather than massive ones at this time, but we do also want to make sure we're doing our best to regulate blood sugar. So, protein is something that's really important. And this is a phase of life where a lot of women will eat less protein. And we don't want to do that because year over year, as we age, we start to lose muscle, which is going to be important and beneficial for so many reasons in your body. But making sure you're getting enough protein with your meals is important because it's going to help keep blood sugar in balance, which also reduces gas and also reduces like the highs and lows of energy, which is not going to be helpful if you're bloated all the time. Um, and so if we're eating protein and you're finding that you don't feel good at that time, like maybe it's sitting in your stomach for a long time, which is the time where we can get this gas buildup. This may be an indication that you need some help with this. You may need some support. You may need some bitters to stimulate the body to produce stomach acid to break down these foods properly, which will also lead to more bile production as well, which is beneficial for the body. There are some herbal things that we can do as well to support hormones. I don't like to blanket these things because there are options that will be really good for some people and really either may not work for other people or may not necessarily cause an ill effect, but if it's not working for you, what's the point? So this is where I like to test our clients and figure out what exactly does your body need to get back into balance. It could be something like chaste tree or vitex. That's a really common herb that women will use through perimenopause. But there's some other ones as well that are very, very beneficial too. So it's about figuring out what's the right thing for your body. So we also want to make sure during this phase of life that you're managing stress. Because if there's a lot of stress in your system and stress in your body, if you're, this is the example that's always used, and I'm going to use it just because it's an easy one. If you're running from a saber-toothed tiger, I don't remember the last time I ever ran from a saber-toothed tiger, let alone in perimenopause. But if you're running from danger, digestion is not a priority. So if you're dealing with a lot of stress, it could be at work, it could be in the family, it could be financial stuff, it could be anything. It could be over-exercising. It could be from dieting too much. If your body's under a lot of stress, even though it's not the same from a literal sense, your body doesn't see it any different than if you were running from danger. And if that's the case, digestion is not a priority. And so stomach acid production is going to turn down. And the other things that are necessary for your body to properly digest food are not going to happen in the way that they should. So, again, this is what can lead to the bloating. It can make the food sit in your stomach, and then ultimately the gas builds up and you get the big bloated belly, right? So there's a couple other there's a, lack of physical activity can be one. If you're someone who's sitting all the time, and not getting much activity, that can cause bloating. And then there's less common ones too. So, during perimenopause, things like ovarian cysts or PCOS, can be more prone to having bloating. And then there's, endometriosis is another one that often can be more prone to having bloating as well. And if these are things that you're dealing with, if bloating is something that you're dealing with in general, this is something I can help you with. But if you suspect there could be some PCOS or some endometriosis or something else going on, I can test you for this. This is where quantum nutrition testing is really beneficial because we can test people and get it's a more sensitive form of testing. So we can find things out when you're at like a lesser degree of severity of the condition or of whatever you're dealing with and start to support the body and help get the hormones back in balance so that whatever symptoms that you're dealing with we can start working to move away from them. So hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully you understand what I'm saying there, but ultimately, like, you want to work with a practitioner if you're experiencing any of these things, because trial and error, it can work sometimes, but it's guessing. And when it comes to health and when it comes to getting rid of the issues that you're dealing with, we don't want to guess. We want to test and figure out what your body needs and help it get back into balance. So, okay. So what are things that we can do? So fortunately, here's the good news part of this video. Fortunately, there are natural things you can do to reduce bloating during perimenopause. So as I mentioned, there were some dietary factors that weren't going to benefit, but there's dietary factors that can benefit as well. So as I mentioned, protein is something that's really important because that's going to help with regulating blood sugar throughout this phase. This is a time where a lot of women will lean towards eating a diet that's higher in legumes and higher in vegetables and stuff, but those can cause gas in the system as well. So you need to figure out how your body responds to things and what functions best for you. And in some cases, as I said, you may need some support with digestive enzymes or maybe a probiotic to help balance your gut bacteria or some support for stomach acid so your body can break things down properly. We also want to focus on a diet that's low in processed foods and refined sugars. That can actually help reduce bloating by taking those things out of your system because ultimately all of those are going to be gas creators. And that's what we want to get rid of. Regular physical activity is helpful, even just walking. As I said, stress is not a benefit for the body. So I used to be, I don't want to say competitive CrossFitter because I wasn't like a CrossFit Games kind of CrossFitter. I was like a locally competitive CrossFitter. But I used to CrossFit like 6 or 7 days a week. And that's a lot of stress on your system. And that can be a problem as you're going through this phase of life because the body's just not able to manage stress in the way that it used to. And so when I say regular exercise, like, yes, there are some times of the month where doing a little bit more intensity can be okay, but ultimately doing slower things like walking can be beneficial. Some strength training can be really beneficial as well. And as I mentioned, with muscle dropping year over year through this phase of life, strength training is really beneficial for you because muscle is the most metabolically active tissue we have. So if we can support and promote a little bit more of that, that's going to benefit you too. Things like yoga and meditation are helpful for the stress relief techniques. Some deep breathing is a really good one as well. I didn't understand deep breathing years ago, but it can actually take you out of fight or flight mode and put you into that rest and digest mode very quickly. And it's something that you don't need like a studio or a home gym to do. You can do it in the bathroom and avoid your kids for a few minutes or out in public somewhere, and no one's going to know. And it'll help you feel better. It's also important to stay hydrated and to avoid overeating as well. Some women find it really beneficial to do smaller meals just to prevent the bloating from being too much of a problem. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there's some herbal options that can be helpful here. So things like bitters can be helpful if digestion is a challenge. It can help with the bile production as well. They can be helpful for allowing the body to feel better, but this is the caveat here is I want to make sure we understand that one of the problems that I have with medication is a lot of the times it's not even looking for the cause. It's just, what can I give you to suppress the symptom? And I don't want to suggest we do that with these herbal things as well, without also working on figuring out what the cause is and what support the body needs to get back into balance. However, while you're doing that work, while you're working with a practitioner and rebalancing the body, there are some herbal things that can be helpful to kind of make the symptoms less of a problem for you, if that makes sense. So, by pairing the rebalancing work with some natural system support, that can be really helpful for a lot of women. Perimenopause can be a difficult transition, but it doesn't have to be. And understanding the causes of bloating and taking steps to reduce it naturally will make it a bit easier for you, which is what I really want to leave you with. This isn't something that you just have to accept. Like, okay, I'm heading toward menopause now. Like, the fun days are over. Now the bloating, now the symptoms I'm living with are just going to be my reality. That's not the case. It's not true. There are things you can do. You just need to find someone who's willing to help and support you. And this is literally, as I said, something that I work with clients with every day. Perimenopause, menopause are things that I can help you figure out what's going on and what your body needs to get back into balance. Eating a balanced diet, getting regular exercise, and practicing stress relief techniques will all help make bloating less of a problem for you and more comfortable. So if you're concerned about, this and you'd like some help and support with it, please reach out. We can do an assessment and figure out what's going on with you. Where's the imbalance in your body and what does your body need to get back into balance? And from there, we can put together a strategy that's specific to you. I use supplementation to help the body, and it's about finding the solution that's the exact right fit for you. So hopefully you got some value from this. If you have any questions, please leave them below. I'd be more than happy to answer. And reach out if you would like to learn more about working with us and how we can help you with perimenopause symptoms or any symptoms that you're struggling with. And if you know anyone else who's struggling with things like these, don't hang them out to dry. Share this with them. Hopefully, there's some value in it for them as well. I shared with you some things that you can do naturally, and it's just a good reminder for people a lot of the time. So, I hope you enjoyed this. I will see you again tomorrow, I believe. I'm Kate McDowell again from Aligned Natural Health, and live well naturally.